You think strength is volume? Try silence.
The fog hung low over Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, as the first light of dawn crept through the pines. Clara Bennett stood motionless in the recruit line, her posture rigid, hands flat against her thighs, eyes locked on the horizon. The air smelled of salt and pine, mixed with the sharp tang of gun oil and sweat. It was her third day in Marine Corps basic training, and already the whispers had started. They called her Sparrow, a jab at her slight frame 5'4", barely 120 pounds, in her quiet demeanor. She didn't fit the mold of a Marine, not in the eyes of her peers. There was no fire in her voice, no swagger in her step. She moved with precision, but never with flair, never drawing attention. To them, she was a ghost in the making, someone who wouldn't last. Clara heard the murmurs during lights out, lying still on her bunk. Sparrow won't make it past week 1, Private Malone muttered, his voice carrying across the barracks. 2 days, tops, added Kessler, the squad's self-appointed alpha, his deep laugh echoing. She can't even carry her pack like a real Marine. The words stung, but Clara's face remained impassive. Her fingers brushed the dog tags around her neck, not hers, but those of her older sister, Lieutenant Emily Bennett, killed in action in Kandahar when Clara was 17. The memory of the funeral was vivid, the folded flag, the rifle salute, her father's stoic silence. Clara hadn't cried. She'd made a vow instead to honor Emily, not in grief, but in purpose. Her grandfather, Henry Whitaker, a Vietnam-era Marine, had shaped her resolve. He wasn't a man of many words, but his lessons were etched into her bones. In their small backyard in Asheville, he taught her not to fight for show, but to wait, to breathe, to strike only when the moment was right. A hawk doesn't screech before it dives, he told her. It watches, then it takes. Clara carried that lesson now, her silence a shield, her patience a weapon. The barracks erupted at the morning bugle, boots slamming against the floor, voices shouting. Within minutes, they were outside, breath fogging in the humid dawn. Double time to the pit. Staff Sergeant Reynolds barked. They ran, packs heavy, mud soaking their boots. Clara kept pace near the front, not leading, but never falling behind. Pick it up, Sparrow, Reynolds shouted. You're not here to nap. She nodded, voice steady. Yes, Drill Sergeant. Malone smirked as he passed, flicking mud onto her leg. Keep up, Princess. She didn't reply, her energy saved for the task. In the pit, they dropped into push-ups, sand burning their palms. After 200, arms trembled, and grunts turned to groans. Clara's form stayed precise, her breathing even. Reynolds paused in front of her, eyes narrowing. Got something to prove, Bennett? No, Drill Sergeant, she said, her voice flat. He scoffed. You sure? 'Cause you look like a breeze could knock you over. She didn't answer, just kept pushing. At Chow, the whispers grew louder. Sparrow, someone sneered, loud enough for laughs to ripple through the mess hall. A recruit, Harper, leaned across the table. You gonna say something, or are you mute? Clara paused, met her gaze. Just focused. Harper raised an eyebrow. On what? Clara didn't answer. She finished her meal, stood, and left before anyone else. Back in the barracks, she pulled a faded photo from her Bogger and Emily, laughing on a porch swing, Emily in her dress blues. Clara had been 14, unaware of the path she'd choose. Emily had taught her basic self-defense, but it was Henry who honed her instincts. You don't need to look dangerous to be dangerous, he'd said. That night, as the barracks fell quiet, Clara's hand rested on the dog tags. The whispers were just noise, and noise never broke her. By the second week, Sparrow had become her shadow. Kessler, broad and loud, had coined it on day 1, chuckling as Clara struggled with her duffel. Sparrow's gonna fly away in the wind, he'd said, and the name stuck. Instructors used it half-mockingly. Sparrow, you lifting that gear or praying it moves itself? Clara answered with nods, her performance steady but unflashy. She was never last, but never first, always just enough. The taunts sharpened. Malone made a ritual of jabbing at her during rifle drills. Ever held a real gun, Sparrow? Or just toy ones? At Chow, he leaned in. Bet she's eating kale and yoga vibes. Clara ignored him, but the barbs piled up. One night, She returned to find sand in her boots and socks in her locker, a petty prank, but a clear message. She was an outsider. Harper, one of the few women in the platoon, caught her eye. You gonna do something about Kessler? Clara shook her head. No point. Harper frowned. That was him. You know it. Clara met her gaze. So do they. Later, Reynolds overheard Malone call her Sparrow Dust during inspections. He paused, looking from Malone to Clara. You got something to say, Bennett? No, Drill Sergeant. You gonna let him call you that? No, Drill Sergeant. Then what are you doing? Waiting, she said, the words stopping him cold. There was no fear in her voice, just certainty. That night, Clara sat under the stars, breaking curfew but unbothered. Her fingers traced Emily's tags. Emily would have punched Kessler by now, she thought. But Clara wasn't Emily. Her discipline wasn't weakness, it was a blade being sharpened in silence. Every insult taught her endurance. Every shove taught her balance. She was ready. Week 3 brought a combat evaluation, a dusty ring under the Carolina sun. The platoon gathered, tense and eager for the one-on-one drills. Staff Sergeant Daniels announced, "Today, you show who's got fight and who's got excuses." Pairs were drawn randomly. Clara faced Private Torres, a former linebacker who walked like he owned the ring. He grinned. "You lost, little bird?" She said nothing. At the whistle, Torres charged, relying on size. Clara moved like water, redirecting his force with a shift of her stance. He threw a hook. She ducked, tapped his ribs lightly. "That it," he laughed, then lunged again. He grabbed her arm, slamming her to the mat. The crowd roared, thinking it was over. Clara lay still for 2 seconds, then rolled back, stood, and reset. Daniels called it. Enough. Clara dusted herself off, nodded, and stepped out. At chow, Kessler spread the story. Sparrow went down in one hit. Didn't even swing. Malone piled on. Next time, pair her with a scarecrow. Fair fight. Even Harper chuckled, caught in the moment. Clara ate alone, her mind elsewhere back in Asheville, 12 years old, losing a sparring match. "Why'd I lose?" she'd asked Henry. "You didn't fight back," he'd said. Control without action is only half the fight. That night, Clara wrote to her father. She didn't mention the taunts or the nickname. Just one line. "I think Emily would be proud of how long I've waited. Tomorrow, I answer." The next day, an unscheduled combat drill called for volunteers. Kessler, Malone, Torres, and 2 others, Pierce and Dunn, stepped up, eager for glory. Daniels scanned the crowd. Anyone else? Silence. Then Clara raised her hand. Laughter erupted. "She's gonna die," someone whispered. Kessler smirked. "Let's give Sparrow a real test." But Daniels had been watching Clara, noting her stillness. "No," he said. 5-on-1, controlled force. She's the center. 1 minute. Clara stepped into the ring, eyes calm, stance loose. The 5 circled, padded gloves on, smirks fading as they sensed her focus. She wasn't thinking of winning, but of timing. The whistle blew. Kessler charged first, a wide hook. Clara pivoted, caught his arm, and swept his legs, sending him to the dirt. Torres rushed next, aggressive. She slipped behind, tapped his knee, and locked his joint, dropping him. Malone hesitated, then lunged. Clara ducked, swept his leg, and he hit the sand. Pierce and Dunn attacked together, one high, one low. Clara flowed between them, redirecting one into the other, leaving both sprawled. 40 seconds in, all 5 were down. The platoon was silent, mouths open. Daniels stared. Kessler stood, wincing, and nodded, not surrender, but respect. "Where'd you learn that, Bennett?" Daniels asked. "My grandfather, drill sergeant." "You gonna show us more?" "Only when I have to." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Daniels smiled. "Get cleaned up, Phantom." The name stuck. The Gauntlet Lumita 48-hour test of endurance, navigation, and combat under simulated fire. No sleep, full gear, pure chaos. Clara lay awake the night before, Emily's last letter in her mind. "They think I'm brave because I don't show fear. I'm scared every day, but I keep moving." At dawn, the march began, 12 miles under load. One recruit dropped out early, another twisted an ankle. Clara stayed in the second row, her pace a metronome. Obstacles followed, barbed wire crawls, wall climbs, water crossings. By hour 12, tempers flared. Kessler punched the dirt after slipping. Clara moved silently, flawless. A junior instructor whispered, "She's a phantom. No noise, no mistakes." By hour 32, the final combat challenge Haida simulated ambush. Clara's squad was battered. Malone limped. Harper bled. Kessler's voice was hoarse. Daniels announced a twist. One volunteer per squad for a capture-rescue scenario against a trained instructor. Clara stepped forward. "I'll go." Kessler opened his mouth, then stopped, seeing her calm. Blindfolded, disoriented by smoke, she faced a stocky instructor aiming to break her. He grabbed her arm. She rolled free, ducked his next move, and swept his leg. A fake punch came. She countered with a padded strike to his chest. 2 minutes in, the drill stopped. "She passed," the head instructor said. The squad's exhausted faces held new respect not for victory, but for her control. At graduation, Daniels presented the eagle, globe, and anchor. "One of you showed power, doesn't need to scream," he said, turning to Clara. "Step forward, Phantom." She took the emblem, a small smile breaking through. A week later, a captain reviewed her file, noting her unlisted martial arts background. "Why hide it?" he asked. "I wanted to earn it, sir," Clara replied. He nodded. "You're recommended for advanced combat instruction at Camp Pendleton. You'll train recruits." At Pendleton, Clara faced a new batch of recruits, nervous and unpolished. On her first day, she stepped onto the mat, plain fatigues, no rank displayed. "I'm Corporal Bennett," she said. "Your job is to survive one round with me." A cocky recruit, Larson, a former wrestler, smirked. He lasted 7 seconds a step, a block, a sweep, and he was down. By the 10th recruit, the group was silent, awestruck. Clara noticed a quiet female recruit, Mia Torres, trembling during gear check. "You're not here by accident," Clara told her. "They call me Mouse," Mia admitted. Clara smiled. "A mouse knows every corner. A bear only knows how to roar." Weeks later, Mia faced 3 opponents in the ring and held her ground, earning a nod from Clara. "You moved like you meant it." When Clara's transfer to an elite recon unit arrived, she walked Pendleton's grounds one last time. New recruits arrived, some loud, some quiet. Another overlooked girl would step forward, and Clara knew she'd be ready. She'd earned her name Phantom not for vanishing, but for leaving a mark that endured. What does Clara's story stir in you? Have you faced moments where silence was your strength, or where you had to prove yourself against doubt? Share your thoughts below, especially on the role of violence and injustice in shaping us. Do you believe patience can outweigh aggression, or is force sometimes the only answer? Let's hear your stance.